Welcome to our business leadership discussion today on the subject of time management. We're excited to have each of you here, and particularly those who will be watching later, as I know quite a few watch following this presentation due to time change and scheduling reasons. Let's just begin with a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for the privilege it's ours to listen today, learn, and lead in ways that hopefully will make us more effective in fulfilling your purposes for our lives. I thank you for Carolyn. I thank you for her heart. I thank you for the years of preparation you've given her and for her presentation today. I pray you'll give her much wisdom and insight. Help us each to pick up an insight or two that we can apply to our own lives and to the people we serve and lead. So we commit this hour to you in your name. Amen. Carolyn Bergeron is a pioneer with over 25 years of experience. She's literally trained and inspired thousands of leaders around the world. She holds a master's degree in leadership, and she's certified in life coaching by the Christian Coaching Institute and has a master business coach level, but with the Kingdom Builders Academy. She's held management positions in Haiti, Vancouver, and Quebec, and so has a wide range of expertise. She pastors a church in Sherbrooke, Quebec, alongside her husband, Pascal. Carolyn is the founder of the Vivid Academy, an online coaching and mentoring platform for leaders and entrepreneurs seeking their destiny. Her influence extends even to having coached the NFL's chaplain, illustrating her commitment to helping people realize their full potential. Her household's busy and full with 3 energetic teens, and so she endeavors to embody that balance between personal and professional life. I know that Carolyn has spoken on this topic and many others for many years, and so what she shares today comes from a wealth of wisdom. Carolyn, share with us what God's put in your heart.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad to be with you today. I love the topic of time management because that's something we all need to develop. And I think time management is not a problem to solve, it's a tension to manage. Something we're going to have to grow for the rest of our life, but we can get better and better at it. But and I'm a person that like interaction. So if it's okay with you, Don, if I ask them some question, they can answer
Feel
in the
free.
chat. Okay, so I have this question for you as I get started. Given a choice, would you rather have more money or have more time? So you can write your answer in the chat. I'm a coach. That's why I ask a lot of questions in our workshop. I can help it. Don't say half and half. Yes. If I have more money, yes. Carrie say both. You guys want to have the best of both worlds. Well, actually, and fair enough, we would like to have both. But when I've asked so many business owners and entrepreneurs, most people, maybe they would say, I want more money, but if they really reflect and dive in, they would think, oh, I would just need more time to be able to do everything that I need to do. I want to start with a quote that just really reflect well the value of a time. And I found it in a John Maxwell book, and it's unknown from the unknown author. So to know the value of a year, ask the student who failed the final exam. To know the value of a month, ask the mother of a premature baby. To ask the value of a week, ask the editor of a weekly newspaper. To know the value of one day, ask the wage earner who has 6 children. To know the value of 1 hour, ask the lovers who are waiting to meet. To know the value of 1 minute, ask the person who missed the plane. That happened to me, and let me tell you, it's not fun. To know the value of 1 second, ask the person who survived an accident. And to know the value of 1 millisecond, ask the Olympic silver medalist. Oof. Time matter. If you're ever ask yourself, oh, I wish I would have 1 more day, just more. Or if you ever said to yourself, where did the time go? Well, this session is for you. So lean in, pay attention, you're in for a treat. Yes, time matter. And have you ever felt stuck in the tyranny of the urgent? There's so many things on your to-do list, so many demands from other people, but you're like, how? It feels that I'm always running out of time. And our time together in this session, I'm going to give you tools, but also help you change mindset about time management. I will provide you with both tools systemically that help you systemically and investigate what keeps you busy and what keeps take a lot of room in your life. And we can all be busy but not fruitful. And the Lord's not going to ask us when we meet him one day, have you been busy? Since have you been fruitful? So we can be busy with doing a bunch of things and a long to-do list, but if are the things that are not in alignment with the mandate that God has given us, it's busy work, and we're not has been put on earth for doing busy work, to really do impactful work. So the first thing I want to share today is to shift our mindset about time. Psalm 90 verse 12 says, teach us to number our days so that we may gain a heart of wisdom. And most scholars believe that this passage was written by Moses in the wilderness. And there he reflected on the frailty and shortness of life. And by the way, I put some notes for my presentation in the chat. You can press that in the chat. It's accessible on a Google Doc. Moses asked God to teach his people to live well and make the best use of the time we have on earth. So when we think about it, most of the daily excuse that we express verbally have to do with time. We can say, I don't have the time, I ran out of time, I didn't have the chance to get it done, and my favorite, I wish I could, but I just can't. And we often speak of time as something we lack of. But it's really, when you think about it, we are rich in time. In God's perfect design, he chose to give us 24 hours, saying, this is all you need for you to do what I'm asking you to do on earth. And time is the great equalizer. We all have 24 hours in a day, right? We all have 24 hours a day. We all have the same amount of time. And there was something that happened in my life that really shifted when I realized that I had the same amount of time that the President of the United States, the same amount of time that Jesus had on earth, than a mother of 15 children. And time is impartial and cannot be manipulated. You can't even waste time or earn time. You can only live time. We can only live it. The simple truth calls for a radical mindset shift. The first mindset shift is to stop declaring, I do have the time. I have the time. Myers-Barnes, he's the author of Executive Time Management, and he says this: time management has nothing to do with the clock, but everything with the organization and controlling your participation in certain events that coordinate around the clock. Einstein understood time management as an oxymoron. It cannot be managed. You can't save time. Time is unemotional, uncontrolled, and unencumbered. It moves forward regardless of circumstances, and in the game of life, create a level playing field for everyone. Like the workers in the parable of the minas, you can be a tenfold steward, a fivefold steward, or a non-productive steward. And again, changing the way we speak about time is huge. It's huge. So instead of saying, I don't have the time, is to say, it's a discipline. It's a discipline. And it starts with that. The time management starts with taking radical ownership of the gift of God for our life. Radical ownership, to not blame circumstances, not blame people. Like right now, as I'm speaking to you, I'm a lead pastor of a church. I'm helping business owners to launch their coaching practice all around the world. I'm a business coach. I have my own leadership academy, and I have 6 different speaking commitments. And I'm going to homeschool my 15-year-old son this fall. Okay, so my calendar is full. Okay, but everything that I'm teaching today, it's to really I'm able to do it because I don't try to do it all. So that's we're going to see that later. But it's about first taking radical ownership of my time. I can't start blaming even God for the lack of time. There's been and maybe I'm going to share that a bit later, but there's been a time in my life where I felt um, that God did not give me everything I needed. Everything I needed as far as time wise. I said, God, I don't have enough time to do all the things you call me to do. And when I shift my mindset to say, I do have the time, and I start to speaking the truth, I don't have the time, but I didn't take it. Just radical ownership. I had the chance to get it done, but I just choose not to do it. I choose not to meet. I decided not to go. I chose not to finish this project. And that, my friend, is taking radical ownership of our time. Because with time, we can often be in a victim mode. And as long as we stay in a victim mode, we cannot be in a victorious and conquering mode. Yes, and the first step is always to take radical ownership of our time and change the way we speak about time. So while I am challenging you today to be radically honest with yourself. You may not want to tell your friend, well, I choose not to meet with you today. Our potential business partner. I choose not to meet with you today because I had coffee with my wife. You don't need to say these things, but it's just for you to know to take radical ownership. So my first challenge to you today to really, in our journey of becoming better leaders, is to first eradicate from your vocabulary any statements that present you as a victim of time. Stop saying that you don't have the time. And this will shift things in the spiritual realm. It's going to shift your composure. It's going to shift how you're going to show up in time. It's going to shift to how you relate to time, that you're not victim of time, but God is the time is the time is a generous gift from our Heavenly Father. So that's the first thing. The second one, be radically honest with what you do with your time. Number 3, stop blaming or making excuses for things. Change your language and own your decisions. Again, and saying, I'm a victim of time, I don't have time. Really start using these things. And these things are, and by the way, if you want to follow up, if you want to have those cues, and they're not natural. They're not natural. It has to be like a really transformation, but there are times we have to say things. Same thing with forgiveness. There are times in my life I had to say I forgive for a couple of weeks before I start feeling it. So same thing with declaration about time management. I do have the time. Time is a gift from God. And that is the first shift. I can give you all the techniques possible for managing your time. But if you feel victim of time, nothing will work. So are you still with me?
Mm-hmm.
You're with me? Awesome. Beautiful. Okay, so now the first one was to change your mindset about your time. You do have the time. The second one that I want to share with you today is track your time. So in a world of constant demand, distraction, and interruption, which often results in spending most of our time on the things that matter the least, and the least amount of time on the things that matter most. And if you're like me, you can even start your day with a to-do list and a calendar, but it's easy that your time can feel like it's getting hijacked on other people's priority. So I encourage you to become master at tracking your time. Often we plan our time, but when you plan your time, it's like an estimation. It's an estimation of something. But when you track your time, it helps you evaluate how much time is that particular task took you. And you can spend your life but planning wrong because you never learn to track it. If I'm thinking I need to prepare a presentation and I plan really 3 hours to plan my presentation. But if I track my time, I realize that it really takes me 6 hours. And I'm setting myself for failure. I'm not learning from I'm not adjusting, I'm not changing, right? So if there's tasks that you have in your calendar that you have planned, make sure you track it. If I put an hour for this, is that really actually what happened? So imagine that you plan and write a proposal again at work between 9 to 10 a.m. And because you track your time, you realize that you were distracted on social media for 15 minutes, responded to a text from your mom for 5 minutes, and engaged in a 10-minute conversation with a coworker. Okay, so although you plan 2 hours for your project, tracking your time help you realize that you only stay engaged and focused for only 30 minutes. So you see, when you plan your time, it's like, well, that was 2 hours, but it's not what it is. It's really you spend 30 minutes on that project. So it's not that you ran out of time, it's that the time was not focused. So this week, I challenge you, and I give you some tools in the notes. I challenge you to track your time. And if you use digital calendar, you can plan it, of course, what you intend to do. But also, I encourage you to put things in, it could be in different colors. You know, you can, your planning can be in yellow, for example, those time blocks, what you plan, but then you can review it and put it in red. What did you actually end up doing? So you learn to track your time, and it will help you to identify those time wasters. And this will allow you to create a list of things that can that are interruption, or that can rob your time, or things that can, and two, there's different tips too that I can give, but time in a day is not equal. Time in a day is not equal. We call that too energy management. So research shown that we only have between 3 to 4 hours of really focused time where we at the peak of our energy. So if you think about energy zones and focus zones as red zone, you're there, you're focused, you're activated, you're creative, you problem solve, right? You're in that zone. That is one aspect. We call that the green zone. Then you have the yellow zone where you are alert. You're alert, but you're not particularly creative. And you have the red zone. The red zone is when you don't feel you're much engaged. You're really disconnected, and this is not the best version of yourself, really. And one thing that I discover is that I am a better coach in my yellow zone. I am a better coach in my yellow zone, because if I coach in my green zone, I try that my brain is too creative. So I'm trying to solve the problem for my clients. So I think too far ahead, right? So it's really to take about those time in a day to evaluate, and that's really teaching about time and energy management, because they're both so important. So as you're looking at a normal day, I encourage you to also track your energy. So we talk about tracking time, track your energy, and to say, where in a day do you feel the most creative, and where you could write you're in that creative space, you're good at solving problem, and you think ahead. Okay, so this is the time you want to save and protect for the project. Like if you have to write a report, in my case at the church, if I have to write a sermon and keeping this, if you have to create some copywriting for your social media feed, if you have like those a board presentation, things that requires more focus and more creativity, you want to put it in that green zone. And in the yellow zone, it could be things that are that require your focus, but does not require you to be creative. What we tend to do, and here's how we can really redeem the time. And I've helped people reclaim about 3 hours of their time per day, okay, through the course that I'm doing. I have course on the topic, and like some system that has really, really helped. I'm just going to share one of the tip here is that when you are in your green zone, that's focus zone, you want to put it sacred, you want to keep it, you want to protect it as much as possible, and put the things that are, the 20% that's going to make the 80% difference. Or if you, Gary Keller from the one thing, what is that one thing that you need to do? So put it in your green zone. Many of us can spend the best time of our green zone just answering emails. And returning phone calls. And that is like abdicating the best hours of your day for tasks that can be done in a less productive state, like the yellow zone. Are you guys following me? Everybody's
Yeah,
following?
makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah? Yeah. So it's just about being, and that's radical ownership and radical awareness. Um, to be like, I know for me, past my green zone, it's early, and most people it's in the morning. Not everybody, it's in the morning, and I realized I would run errands during that time. And I was like, hey, what are the robbers of my green zone? I've been becoming, even with the team that I have, I help them identify the green zone, and we all protect each other's green zone so that we can become more productive. So during the best time for me to answer email, for example, or do more trivial things would be at the end of my yellow zone. At the end of my yellow zone. And another tips I want to give you on that, and there's more notes in more things. And some of you, if you're familiar with Covey's quadrant, it's quadrant for time management. It's really, really helpful. And but when you track your time, it's going to really help you first to take ownership of your time, to see which activity should go where to make most of it, to be the most productive, and to keep it again, to keep it protected so you don't have those time robber. And another tip is to plan your time, not your task. But plan and track your time, not your task. Many of us, we're going to have a to-do list and we say, respond emails or create this. So then you can put, respond to email for 30 minutes. And you put a timer. You literally put a timer, because this is how you can end up being like, I spend an hour and a half answering emails. I didn't want to. Well, you can spend an hour in the morning and an hour later in the day, right? So you track and you plan your time more than the task. At times we feel we have to finish something. If you go just by project, then you just start a project or answering emails or getting back to people. You're like, okay, I need to do all of this. But no, if you say, I'm going to do this for that amount of time and putting myself a timer, then I can finish the rest tomorrow, or I can finish the rest later, so that these things don't take over your whole day and rob you from your most precious productive hours in a day. And I really encourage you, it's in the note, there's a lot of notes there. I always tend to provide a bit more notes. And but there's something very powerful about, I'm just gonna share this with you quickly, and then we can go more into Q&A. Can you allow me to share my screen, Don?
Oh, sure.
Thank you. I think most people are familiar with that, but it's kind of thing that it's always good to be reminded. So that's Steve Covey's time management metric on the book, First Thing First. So I would say prioritize in your calendar the things that are important and urgent. And I want to congratulate you, because that's what you're doing right now. This is what you're doing today. You are prioritizing your personal development. And those are things that are important but not urgent. And I would say everything that's most meaningful in your life or important but not urgent. Taking your spouse on a date, spending time with your kids, exercising, building friendship, true recreation, personal growth. Those are all things that are super important but may not appear urgent, but that they are essential to our health. And I can tell you, if you don't plan this first, it's just not going to happen. Because if not, you're going to have the rest of those things that's going to take over. Here, you have also important and urgent. That's the quadrant of necessity. And the key action here is to manage. Could be crises that are emerging, deadline-driven activities, medical emergencies, other true emergencies. Some they are emergencies for others that are not really. Sorry, I don't know why. There's balloon that came out sometime with my hand gesture. I'm French, so I move a lot with my hands. So I create those that on Zoom. So if you have a pressing problem that can emerge with an employee's last minute preparation, those again are things to manage. But the things we want to be very careful is here, those two quadrants is they're not important, but they're urgent. That's a quadrant of deception, because it lies to you. It makes you believe that it's super important. It makes you believe that this is, you need to stop everything else you're doing to be able to do that. But again, here the key is to use with caution or even to avoid it. Examples there is meeting with people's priorities, meeting other people's priorities and expectations, and all of that people-pleasing tendencies and desire to be perceived as being a good player, being a good sport, carry your load. At times it can just expand to a point where we're really, there's a lot of things on our list that are not our priorities, but they become kind of dumped on us. So things that seem to be urgent but not important, frequent interruptions. So I hope you feel the permission to put notes, like use a lot of your notification, do not disturb. If you are in an office setting, you can put something on your handle just as a, when this is there, I'm in my green zone, my focus zone, and I'm not to be interrupted unless there's a real emergency, like somebody died, until I bring it back. Because the thing is that what seems to be important for people, if you delay your intervention, often they will find their own solutions. And we can create that culture of enablement when we're always running after just to help them. We're running in the first, when they raise their hand, we're always there. And we think it's good leadership. But how many times maybe somebody called you and you didn't call back, and then you after follow up with them and you say, oh, I figured it out. I figured it out. How many of you raise your hand that has ever happened to you? Yes. And again, it's something that, and I've learned to give time between my response, even as far as because we got to treat, and that I don't want to enter another topic, but it's very relevant to that. We are teaching people how to treat us. We are teaching people how to treat us. If every time somebody is texting me, I answer to the very second on Messenger, everything, I teach them that they can reach me at all time and that I'm always available and always prompt to response. So in their head, that's my behavior. So my behavior, I've taught them that I always stop everything that I'm doing to respond to their question, right? So it's about really be in a posture to be, again, radical ownership of our life, radical ownership of our time and energy, and to identify what are the things that are maybe important and not urgent, but not important. And the last one is the quadrant of waste. And that is really to eliminate. I do a lot of that in my coaching. That could be escapism activities, mindless TV watching, just busy work, junk mails, even some emails and some calls that can just be busy work. So there are things to avoid. But I just want to commend you for taking the time today. And if you're watching the replay, thank you for being here and investing in what is maybe not urgent, but what is most important, the development of yourself, the development of your skills. So just I'm going to do a quick summary here. So first we talked about the importance of changing how we speak of time, changing our mindset about time, and really take radical ownership and saying those things like, I do have the time. I do have the time. This is what really unlocks your capacity to manage time. It really is. Then we talk about also tracking your time instead of always planning it. Talk about examining your time, examining your, identifying your energy zone also. And then we talk about Covey's quadrant of time management. And I gave you some exercises. So yes, I hope it was helpful.
Very much, very much. Thank you so much, Carolyn. That's a wonderful presentation, given a short period of time and all you covered. You gave us some great ideas, practical tips. So now why don't we take a few minutes for some questions, comments? I wanted to ask a simple question.
Yeah.
What events in your life brought you to the point where you felt it was important to dive into the importance of time management?
Yeah.
You know how need is usually driven, to learn is a major need. What need was in your life or events that brought about your focus on time management?
Yeah, it was, well, I've always been managing a lot, but I was at the time provincial director of a group of churches and traveling a lot to speak. And we discovered that my kids had some special needs as far as learning and different things. And the three of them did. I did homeschool to some of them, and they just had different needs. And we were in a season where they were all sick, and we keep finding those different diagnostic and sickness and illness, and they need specialists. And I used to my work used to be to plan a large event for preteens, like 800 preteens, sleepovers for 800 preteens. So there's a lot of detail management. So my mind was like, there's so much to do. And I remember just having a literal meltdown. A grown-up meltdown that can happen to us, like a grown-up meltdown, and say, God, I don't have enough time to do all the things you ask me to do. And I remember feeling like discouraged and disillusioned and depleted. And I asked Jesus, I said, Jesus, if you came to give me life and life to the fullest, then why am I always in a survival mode? Why am I striving so much? Why do I need, why do I always feel I don't have enough time to do all the things you ask me to do? And I wonder, any of you can relate to those agonizing prayer? Any one of you has ever agonized over this? Like, God, I don't have time. This is not the right, I don't know. It's not the right, you don't have the right person. I don't know. So it was at a point where you come at the end of yourself, because I am organized. I'm very driven, I did a lot of research on this. So you get to a point where even with all the tools, with all the training, it needed to come, the shift, mindset shift about time. I really felt victim of time. And this is where God revealed to me, say, God, the time is my most precious gift to you. Stop despising it. And it was like it was a wake-up call, and I repented. And I said, God, help me to treasure, help me to count my days, help me to treasure and to be a ever better steward of the gift of time. Because you give me 24 hours in a day out of love and to set me up for success, not to set me up for failure. And that shifts so many things in my life.
Wonderful, wonderful.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm retired now, so I get all kind of obligations to all kind of people, and one Buffett, the guy, the rich guy, he said 90% of the time I say no. Would you relate to that?
Well, Buffett it's a different season of life, right? But it's similar to Steve Jobs would say, I attribute my success to the 5,000 ideas I didn't do, not to the one idea I did. So the idea of eliminating, it's a very good question. For me, I see that in the matter of calling and sweet spot. So even if you have more time, say, God, what is your mandate for my life in this season of life? And there time I had 3 kids under 5 and changing diapers, and my life mission for a very driven CEO person that I was. It was not an easy shift to make. So there's different season of life. So okay, in this season of life, what is my calling? What do you ask me to do? And it is a noble thing to say yes to things that kind of fit to your calling, to say no to the things that kind of fit for the things that absolutely fit. Because when we have time, we feel, well, I don't have excuses. I have the time. But no, no, no. We have to be as good steward of time. So in that sense, yes, to how many things you say no to, but it's less the percentage. It's more a matter of really be clear on what's my sweet spot in this season of life. What is the unique contribution I can make in the world, to the world around me? And God, what are you asking me to do? And there can be many opportunities to consider the thing is that you get to a point in your life and business where there can be so many opportunities, and when you're younger you have the fear of missing out. What if I miss it? But when you're older you get to, well, other opportunities will come, and you're secure in yourself to really to lean into that, to just be in the season of discerning. God, there's a lot of things I can do. What is the must? You can do is a possibility. You should do is a sense of guilt. So what is your must? Jesus said, I must be about my Father's business. That's compelling. That's a response to God's invitation to serve him. That's very different. So if you do it out of can, okay, it's a possibility. If you do it out of should and guilt, that's probably not a good motivation. But say, what is the must of God in this season? Is that helpful?
In a way, one more question I may ask. What is your purpose?
My purpose is to equip women in leadership to become everything that calls them to do. And that's what I do with my leadership academy. I have a leadership academy called Vivid Academy. And I've coached a lot of men through the years, but I have a special there's something about having to carry the role as a mom. Also, the carry, there's different ways, and be a woman in leadership, too different. So I've done a lot of different things in my life, but my purpose in this season is to really help women in their journey of becoming, so that they can handle their next assignment. Because if we don't have the business that we want, because we have not become the person that can steward it, if we have not grown the church the way we want it, as if some of you are in ministries, because we have not become the person yet. And that's a journey of becoming. It's a journey of becoming. And that's what my area of anointing, that's what I can do better than most people that I know. And for many years. So I'm still pastoring a church, I would say, but releasing women and their leadership and their next stage is even higher. That would be my areas of anointing right now in this season. Thanks for asking.
Thank you.
I can't really think of a question, but I can say that one of the things that you really made me think about, Caroline, is when you were talking about tracking time, but not just tracking time, but also tracking energy, which really, raised my curiosity. I think that's a really valid exercise. I have done time tracking exercises in the past and found them hugely informative, right? It's just incredible to see where we lose our time in our day and how long some tasks take without even realizing it. I have found that to be helpful, but I've never really paid attention so much to my energy, which I think is something that I would like to do.
It changed my life, and I would say this is one of I do a lot of coaching with people and with teams and stuff to optimize their time, their energy, but to really understand that even in the context of a marriage, in context of relationship, in context to say there are times that not every hour in a day is the same. It's just not. So really identify your peak hours. And most people will exercise during their peak hours, but it's more productive to exercise during your red zone. Because the red zone, if you're very strategic to do things that brings you life in your red zone, it can bring you back into the yellow zone. Like I did my master's with young kids, okay? So I would go to work and then do my day of work and executive and come back to work and do the meals and stuff. And I needed to be patient to put my kids to bed. I had 3 kids under 5. So I needed, and by 8 o'clock, I was in my red zone. But I figured out that if I go for a walk for 15 minutes, that's a simple habit that brings me back into the yellow zone so I have better energy. So it could be that for you in your day, the way you structure your work day, you can, if by 3 o'clock you're like really you're not there anymore, you don't feel productive, you say, okay, I'm gonna take that 15-minute break during there, just be intentional, renew my mind, and not listening to podcasts, just stay in silence, letting silence renew your mind, just praying. And then it will be better, more strategic, where it can bring you to the yellow zone again until the end of your shift and be more productive. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So there's a way to even gain back, because there's a sense that once you're in the red zone for the day, you're done until the day after. But it's not true. You can exercise, you can call a friend, however you are. There are things you can do to give you life, right? To give you life, to re-energize you, that can really allow you to go from that red zone to that yellow zone, where you're not super creative, but you are fully present, you're patient, and you can do the things you need to do at night and still be somewhat productive.
Yeah, I really found that when COVID first hit, I was working for a large corporation, and I just found it so incredible to see the difference in my energy level when I had the flexibility to do something like what you said, and whether, like take a 15-minute break in the middle of the day, whether that was going for a walk or even just lying down or doing like some stretching or something to re-energize myself. So at the end of the day, I did the same amount of work in the same number of hours, but I still had energy for my family at the end of the day. Whereas oftentimes when I was in the office and didn't have those breaks partway through the day, just coming home and almost being beyond the ability to re-energize myself. So it can really make a difference.
And all of us, we don't want to, the only version of us that our family sees is the red zone. Like, I mean, and there's grace to be in the red zone, right? But it's just, and it just takes really radical ownership, a lot of intentionality, and just, yeah, just greater level of awareness. But it helps you to foster the soul care, the self-care, because it's those things that helps you bring you back, that energizes you towards, help you get back to that yellow zone, where you're maybe not super creative, but you're fully present and you're happy to be there. You're just not, people are talking around you and just talk complete checked off. And if somebody comes with another problem, you're like, I don't think I can take another decision. And we all felt like that at the end of our day, right? So those are things that can be very strategic. And I would say it's really trial and error. We try, that's why I do with coaching with people. They try different things. Oh, something worked, something didn't work. But it's the idea of, again, radical ownership, and say, what's my next step? How can I tweak things? How can I evolve? And that's how we see growth in our life.
Well, and I think it's super important for leaders and managers to recognize that, because, right, you mentioned different people have different levels of energy at different points in the day. And so if, you run your daily schedule or dictate your employee schedule, you could be doing it in a way that is just not very conducive for their highest productivity.
So if we can, as a team, with my team at church, when it's like, okay, what's your most productive time, and how can we safeguard each other's most productive time? Because if they do 3 hours of deep work, it's better for me because they can do in 3 hours 5 hours of work, or they just do 3 hours of work instead of really doing half an hour of work because they're not quite there. And there's research, I think it's by Covey, that says lots of research on employee engagement too, right? Where you get at some point just disconnected, and you're present, but you're not really doing work. You're not really there. So to have those rhythms of rest and to have those conversations with our teams is so important, because not every hour is the same. Then how can we leverage it? And there could be too that meetings is better in people's yellow zone. Our brainstorming meeting can be better in the green zone. But that time where if you're in a team where the energy is very high and the emotions are high, to bring that meeting into everybody's yellow zone, it's gonna right away. I've experienced a lot with that, and it's just a real shift that's interesting to witness.
Yeah, and I've been on the other end of that too. I've been in an employment situation where I've been, brought into meetings that are extremely draining, and meetings that you just have to tolerate your way through when they're scheduled in my green zone, right? So it's so, and it's just so frustrating because you just know that these are my most productive, creative, highest energy times of the day. So if that for me is, 8 till 11 in the morning, and I have a meeting scheduled from 8:30 until 11, it's just, and then you're sitting there and, it's even just going through my mind, and it's almost self-destruction because you're just losing the most productive hours of your day.
And do you feel robbed?
Yes.
Yes, that's what it is that you feel robbed. And that time you can say, well, actually, I'm trying to help you, but you need to help me by leaving me alone during those times. So it's just to have those conversation, right? To become, again, better teams, better people. And I would often, when I coach people, help them to frame it in a way for me to give you the best version of myself, or to give you the best results, because people are very result focused. So even to go with employers to be able to shift and use result work, because it is what it is, right? If I can have this time, you will have more result, then people tend to be a bit more lenient at that level. I want to give you a resource. I put it in it's a free gift. It's called 5 to Thrive. It's 5 strategies to help you thrive in leadership. So I talk a lot in a lot of my teaching is about discovering what God's calling you to do, doing in a way that's sustainable and life-giving, and do it in a way too that you are fruitful and not just busy.
Well,
So
thanks there so much, Carolyn, for this excellent presentation. And the gift we have is the gift you've given us. So thank you very much.